Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur has this week expressed his confidence that their car can compete with Red Bull in 2023. Despite a disappointing first race of the season for Ferrari, featuring lackluster race pace and tyre degradation, along with yet another engine-related DNF for driver Charles Leclerc, Vasseur is still backing their car's concept. It was the qualifying pace of the Ferraris that gave the new team principal something positive to focus on from their weekend in Bahrain. In Q3, Charles was 3/10 behind pole sitter Max Verstappen without having gone out to do a second lap in Q3. Vasseur told F1, "I never saw a car able to match the pace of another one in quali and not be able to in the race. It's a matter of setup and some choices on the car, it's not a matter of concept at all. It's never good to start with a DNF and I would have preferred to finish like Red Bull for sure." Now, I would suggest that Ferrari didn't perhaps really match the Red Bull in quali, but they were at least the best of the rest, with both drivers outpacing the struggling Mercedes of Hamilton and Russell. What Ferrari should be more concerned about though is that last season they tended to perform better in qualifying than they did in races, and it's going to start alarm bells ringing if that pattern continues at this weekend's race in Jeddah. Vasseur, who joined Ferrari from Alfa over the winter, went on to say, "But now I want to stay consistent in my position. I told the team before the test in Bahrain 2 weeks ago that the championship won't be over in Bahrain. It doesn't matter the result in any case. It was true for the winter test and it's true for the first race. The most important thing now is to be able to have a clear picture of the situation, where we are failing, do a proper analysis on this and come back stronger as soon as possible." These statements from Vasseur are certainly a long way from Mercedes' perhaps more somber response, who have all but written their entire car concepts off and already alluded to sacrificing large chunks or even the whole season in order to become more competitive in the medium and long term. But in Maranello and among the notoriously harsh Italian media, long-term goals are rarely enough to deter criticism of short-term failings. Writing for respected Italian news portal Corriere dello Sport, reporter Fulvio Soms wrote a damning editorial piece this week talking about rifts already growing within Ferrari between the new team principal and managing director Benedetto Vigna. For those who followed F1 for a while, seeing chaos behind the scenes at Ferrari and scathing Italian news pieces will come as no great surprise, but seeing it to this extent so early in the season may be a little more than we expected. Solms wrote, "The real cause of what is happening inside the Scuderia lies in a deep rift that has opened up that has undermined two essential ingredients aimed at: one, stability, which went down in December with the replacement of the team principal, Matteo Binotto out, Fred Vasseur in, and two, a certain unity that was in the team, albeit with some grumbling. The rift between Vasseur and the managing director Benedetto Vigna constitutes the true epicenter of the ongoing earthquake orchestrated by President John Elkann, who in effect put Vigna in charge of Vasseur, who now operates with powers inferior to those of his other 9 peers in Formula 1. That means he has no control over the team, a responsibility that usually pertains to the role of team principal. For example, upon his arrival, Vasseur asked for an update on team sponsors, a request which was denied. Even that is handled by Vigna, a role he took away from Binotto in March 2021. Nor does Vasseur have a say on communication matters, since the media manager Thomas Hoffman does not report to him, but instead to Charlie Turner, head of communications. The rest of the article is equally damning and echoes reports from other Italian media outlets, who often have a pretty good insight into things behind the scenes in Maranello. It's also been reported that Ferrari driver Charles Leclerc has already been seeking a meeting with Ferrari president John Elkann, and you can understand the Monegasque driver's concerns when they seem so far off the pace, as well as already hitting reliability issues yet again regarding their power unit. Not only did it cause Leclerc to DNF the first race, but it's also likely to cause a grid penalty for him later in the season due to F1 regulations only allowing 2 energy store elements for the entire season. It's certainly not been the start that the Ferrari fans or team were hoping for, but is it too optimistic for them to be thinking about fighting the Red Bulls this year? If Ferrari are able to unlock the success in qualifying that they had in 2022, then there will definitely be more opportunities to get in front of the Red Bulls, especially at tracks that favour their car more and that are harder to overtake at. As for improving their race pace, however, they look to be almost as far behind as Mercedes right now, with Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz only just finishing ahead of Hamilton and Russell and being easily overtaken by the charging Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. Sainz said after the race, "It's a bit of a reality check. It's where we are. We just use the tyres too much. As soon as I push to defend from Fernando, I cook the tyres, and then you need to start looking also to Lewis. We managed to hold Lewis off, but it gives us very little margin to play with in the race. It's not ideal with the reliability, but more than that, it worries me the gap to Red Bull and the race pace of Aston, which at the moment is faster. I don't believe it will be like that at every race, but it shows that in these sorts of tracks where you need the rear, it costs us a lot of race time. Realistically, it feels likely that we'll get some good battles between Ferrari, Aston and Mercedes this year, but it seems unlikely right now that anyone can compete with Red Bull over a race distance until we see some serious upgrade packages on the cars. And that's assuming that Red Bull don't manage to make their car much faster. Ferrari have kept pretty quiet so far about potential upgrades for this season and what the timelines around them might be, whilst the Mercedes team and drivers have talked of radical changes being needed rather than just trying for marginal gains. Whatever approach Ferrari and Mercedes take, you can be sure that they are thankful for the huge gap left in the calendar by the cancellation of the Chinese Grand Prix, giving them almost an entire month between the third race in Australia and the fourth race in Baku at the end of April. This might give the teams enough time to get a little bit more competitive, but the word from the Mercedes camp is that we could well be waiting until we hit Europe in May before we see any significant upgrades. Speculation aside, this weekend's race in Jeddah will be an interesting one to see and could set the tone for the rest of the season. If Ferrari can be a bit closer to the Red Bulls and show that perhaps Bahrain was just a particularly favourable track for the RB19, maybe the season might be a little bit more interesting at the front than we might expect. That's certainly what Fred Vasseur will be hoping for. Thanks for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, then why not click the like button down below and subscribe for more F1 content coming soon.